Welcome to the MLB Slate Breakdown. I'm Jason Gilbo, Jake Gilbo 11, taking a look at tonight's offensive options, where to find some bats, going game by game, taking a look at what offensive targets you want to be looking at. Break it down to 7:05 and later games, and it's a night where there's not too many stud pitchers to pay up for. I mean, there are some big names, but they do come at a discount price, and none of them are really in favorable spots. So I think you can actually lean a little bit heavier on your bats to start this slate out. Kind of looking at this Camden Yards game here, 8.5 over under. Well, Orioles have a big 4.5 run total to targets. Should definitely hit the over there, going up against Matt Latos, who's bound to regress. I talked about him on the pitcher pod, not a big fan. And really looking at this Orioles team, I think it's pretty favorable spot. Chris Davis, Manny Machado to stand out as the two big names to target. And I don't really hate Trumbo or Jones either. I know they usually hit lefties a little bit better. Jones has been a little bit up and down start the season, but he does come at a pretty good discount. Latos, guy who doesn't miss many bats. Camden Yards, very friendly to lefties and righties. Definitely, certainly in play for me there. And I'll be definitely looking at the Orioles, kind of that top team to target. Just in that ballpark, in that Vegas over-under, I think that's where you want to head. I think that's the best spot to really find offense tonight. So 1 through 6, the Orioles are definitely in play for me. They're kind of the top option who I'll be focusing my core around tonight. As far as the White Sox side of things go, I actually don't mind Kevin Gausman as an SP2 type of play. If anything, he struggled with the long ball at times, 327 WOBA allowed 2 right-handed bats since 2014, 1.33 home runs per 9. That is a little bit concerning, you could say. I think that actually puts guys like Jose Abreu and Todd Frazier in GPP territory only for me. Brett Lowry, another guy who's a cheap second baseman who you could be actually looking at as well in tournaments. Have hit right-handed pitchers well, especially for power. Abreu obviously struggling to start the year. So overall, interesting case. I think Abreu's price tag on both sides is pretty favorable. It's dropped a little bit more tonight. I know it was up over 4,800 or so, I believe, yesterday and the day before. So overall, the White Sox are not a favorable offense by any means, but I think you can look at those guys in tournaments if you want to really separate yourself, because the park factors do help, and Gausman can be home run prone at times. Next game, 7:05, Indians and Phillies. Trevor Bauer, Jared Eichhoff. Bauer's a guy who only gets really in trouble with his walks. You can look at Maikel Franco as an option in tournaments. I don't think he's a bad idea. Ryan Howard, if you want a cheap GPP play. I'm looking more so on the Indian side of things tonight. They're kind of more of the favorable option for me. Yes, they lose the DH, which kind of sucks, but overall, Eichhoff is a guy who's struggled with left-handed bats in his limited time in the majors, 354 WOBA allowed. 36% hard ball rate, 1.44 home runs per 9. That's huge because you're looking at now Carlos Santana, Jason Kipnis, Francisco Lindor, Michael Brantley, 4 lefties right off the bat to start that lineup. And I like all 4 of them. I think they're very playable in cash and GPPs. Vegas isn't necessarily sold on Cleveland being a big run-scoring team tonight just because they have a 3.5 Vegas run total. But overall, I mean, Brantley has looked decent to start the year so far. Obviously, coming off his back injury. Santana, a boomer bust guy, but the middle infield's what I really like tonight. Lindor, very cheap on DraftKings, 3,500. Kipnis, under 4K as well. A little bit pricier on FanDuel, but with the pitching options tonight, you should be able to fit them in. Citizens Bank is actually not a bad ballpark for hitters. It's extremely friendly for power. Obviously not a big power bats, but we saw Kipnis hit a 3-run shot last night. So overall, you can look at this Indian teams. I feel very comfortable deploying them in cash and GPPs. On the other side, as I mentioned, Phillies, not too many options. Reds and Pirates, this one has big weather concerns, but I will talk about some of the Pirates bats. Obviously, Alfredo Simon, not a great pitcher by any means. PNC Park will help him out, but overall, a couple guys to mention. I mean, if you look, Simon's main struggles have been against the left side, 1.35 home runs per 9, 352 WOBA allowed, but he doesn't miss bats. I still think the right-handers like Marte and McCutchen are in play. Jaso and Polanco are the 2 lefties that really stand out, who can really exploit Simon's weakness. Definitely playable in cash games and GPPs. Jaso kind of that value first baseman option. Polanco a little bit more expensive than I would like, but he's hitting the ball well to start the year. But overall, I think that game actually could be washed out. I think it's actually one you should avoid, but If something does change, it's only 2 o'clock Eastern. If something does change later on in the day, those are the names to really target. 7-10, you got Yankees and Red Sox, and two pitchers who um, are prone to getting beat up. There also are two arms that can kind of hold teams at bay. Looking at Porcello, since 2014, allowing a 327 WOBA to lefties. A little bit concerning against this Yankees team like Ellsbury and Gardner, Beltran, McCann. Those are names that stand out for me. I like one or two of them more so, Ellsbury and Gardner in cash games. McCann, he's a fine cash game option, price considered. I think you can look at those guys in all formats. I won't be leaning on them too heavily, but I still think they're in play at their price tag. Obviously, Alex Rodriguez is a tremendous GPP pick just because he's still super cheap. And I know Purcell's a little bit stronger on the right side, but obviously Fenway very favorable for right-handed power. You can definitely look his way. As far as Pineda goes, he is a guy who is extremely home run prone at times. 1.44 home runs per 9 to right-handed bats, 315 WOBA allowed. That is a little bit concerning going up against this Boston team. Obviously against lefties, he's been a little bit better. So kind of like guys like Ortiz and Shaw. Ortiz is very much in play. Shaw not so much for me tonight. But a guy like Mookie Betts, Xander Bogaerts, Justin Pedroia, even Hanley or Ramirez, who's starting to hit the ball a little bit better. If there's any runs, I think it's going to come from this Boston side tonight. Obviously, Vegas is expecting the same thing. Just an over-under of 8. You might see that jump up throughout the day, but overall, I think there are plenty of options, and you know the big names by now, the ones I just mentioned. So very much in play. Fenway should be a pretty high-scoring game tonight, I think, and I think more so on the Red Sox side. Next one, you got Marlins and Brewers. Wei-Yin Chen versus Chase Anderson, 8.5 over-under. I like the Brewers bats tonight. Obviously, we saw the lefty Mike Conley come in and throw an almost no-hitter last night. But you look at what Chen does. He allows homers. And if he's in friendly ballparks, it's scary. 1.45 home runs per 9 to right-handed bats since 2014. 38% ground ball rate, 336 WOBA allowed. Hard ball rate over 30%. So guys like Ryan Braun certainly in play for me tonight. I think cash game wise, he's a fine option to build your team around. Up top, you still have Domingo Santana, Jonathan Villar, Jonathan Lucroy, Chris Carter, all very cheap. It's actually a cheap stack you can work with. In this ballpark, it's very friendly to the right side and lefties as well. So I think Milwaukee's a safe cash game and GPP option because I'm not a fan of Chen tonight, and I think he actually struggles quite a bit. As far as the Marlins side of things go, you can definitely look at those lefties. Chase Anderson has been strong more so against lefties and righties. He has those reverse splits, but still not solid. 317 WOBA allowed. Doesn't strike out guys. You can definitely look at some of those right-handed bats as well, like Giancarlo Stanton and Marcell Ozuna, because Chase Anderson, 352 WOBA allowed to right-handers with a 1.32 home runs per 9. Stanton's a guy, if I'm paying up for an outfielder, it's definitely going to be him. Had the day off. You could see the lineup shift around just a little bit tonight. But overall, guys like Yelich, Ozuna, Prado, Bohr coming off a big game. Certainly he's in play for tournaments, not a cash game guy. JT Realmuto, he's a guy I'm looking at in cash as a cheap catcher. Once again, I think this Marlins offense is actually very favorable at times, and they also come at a discount outside of Stanton. So 1 through 6 there, depending on what they roll out, you could see Dietrich maybe sneak up in the order. I'm hoping that's the case. He would be a cheap third base, second base option, depending on what site you're looking at. So overall, this is going to be a friendly game. I think I ranked this game next to Camden Yards. I love both sides. Very much in play for me. Next one here, you got Angels and Rangers, over-under of 9, Derek Holland, Matt Shoemaker. This one, you're expecting runs, and you're hoping more so from last night. And obviously with Derek Holland on the hill, you might see some shifting in the order, but overall, Yunel Escobar, Mike Trout, Albert Pujols certainly in play for me tonight. Andrelton Simmons might be a cheap shortstop to actually consider if he slips up into the top of the order. Outside of that, you're not looking at too much. I think the Ranger side is a little bit more favorable tonight with Shoemaker and his home run proneness. At times he's at a 1.38 home runs per 9 since 2014, 2 right-handed bats. Lefties 1.3. So overall, you could be seeing plenty of pop from this Texas team tonight, and I actually really like them as a stack. they're actually not too expensive. I love Odor if he's hitting leadoff again. Nomar Mazara becomes an interesting value play. Beltre, Prince Fielder, all candidates for me tonight. If you're going any lower that in the order, they're definitely more GPP plays like Desmond Moreland. You're just trying to really separate yourself from the crowd. So Rangers, I think Rangers rank with the Brewers and Marlins and Orioles tonight. I'm putting those four in the bank as far as building my core around Diamondbacks as well, who we'll be talking about soon. So definitely treat that game as far as a top option to target tonight. 8-10 Rockies and Diamondbacks. Chase Field's been very friendly to hitters, even more friendly than Coors so far this season, according to ESPN. Rockies and Diamondbacks here. Chris Russin, Zach Greinke on the hill, 8.5 over under. Greinke has really struggled at home. I think it's actually interesting to maybe look at this Rockies team as a contrarian stack, because I don't think many are actually going to buy into Greinke really deploding again at home against Colorado, but it could happen. Obviously, Blackmon coming back helps. You're always going to get them at a cheap price tag, especially now on DraftKings with that dynamic pricing. Blackmon 3,600, Story 39, Cargo 37, Arenado 41, Parra 32. It is a cheap stack, and Greinke with his home and away split so far to start the season is something to think about. I'm looking more so on the Diamondback side of things with the lefty on the hill. Obviously, Russin allowing a 367 WOBA to right-handed bats since 2014. Very much in play, all these guys. Definitely looking at Gene Segura. Brandon Drury is a cheap guy to consider. Paul Goldschmidt, obviously, you're an elite first baseman option tonight. With the pitching options, I think you can actually squeeze him in cash. I have no problem with it. I know the price tag is usually pretty daunting for cash games, but obviously there's a ton of value. I think you can definitely build around him tonight. Other names to like, Yasmani Tomas, Valentin Castillo, one of my favorite catching options on tonight's slate. Chase Field, friendly for power. So really 1 through 5, you can definitely look at those names, and I will be all over them. Vegas has a 5-run total for them tonight, so you can deploy with safety there. So getting into the later games, not expecting a ton of offense in this Padres and Dodgers game. 7.5 over under. Colin Rea is a guy you can look at. Obviously limited time in the bigs, but so far 388 WOBA allowed to right-handers, 35% hard ball rate. A guy like Puig at his depreciated price looks great for me. Justin Turner as well, because he has those reverse splits, hits right-handers much better than lefties. So that is something to consider. Ray has been a little bit tougher on lefties, but I still think guys like Seager, Utley, Gonzalez are still very much in play here. Dodgers actually do have a friendly Vegas run total. Not always bold on them because they always kind of disappoint at times, but overall they're definitely an option tonight. Royals and Mariners here. This one I'm not expecting a ton of offense, and over under 7.5. Wade Miley or Dono Ventura. Ventura, the only thing that really struggles with him is the walks. So obviously, he holds lefties at bay, right-handers at bay as well. So I'm not a big fan of the Seattle offense. As far as the right-handers go on the Royal side facing Miley, it is an interesting option. Obviously, Miley 336 WOBA allowed to right-handers over the last 2 years, 0.98 horns per 9. Obviously, Safeco's going to help that. Alcides Escobar up top, Lorenzo Cain certainly in play, Kendrys Morales, really the only guys I'm looking at. Possibly Salvador Perez. I'm not expecting a ton of offense, but if you're playing like a late slate or want to be a little bit different, Cain's kind of my top option, obviously coming off a really strong season against Southpaws. So that's about it there. That's going to wrap things up with a slate breakdown. Check out dailyfantasycafe.com for all our great tools and content.